are here. Former Vice President Walter Mondale's in the house. Your terrific pair of senators, Amy Klobuchar and Al Franken, are here. An outstanding congressional delegation, Keith Ellison, Benny McCollum, Jim Oberstar. All the great candidates on the DFL ticket are here today, and we're thrilled to see them. And obviously, I am very honored to be here with Mark because I served with Mark in the United States Senate. And so I know this man, and I know that he's been fighting for the people of this state his entire career. You know what kind of leader he is. You know what kind of fighter he is. Everybody else in this race might be talking about change. Here's the only candidate who can actually deliver change. He's actually delivered change before. The only candidate who's put people back to work. The only candidate who's saved taxpayer dollars by cutting waste and abuse. So you know Mark Dayton. He's got a track record. He's the only candidate in this race who will stand up for the middle class. He's got a plan to balance the budget without sacrificing our children's education. Small business owners grow and to thrive. The point is, Mark Dayton has spent his life fighting for Minnesota. Yes. And now I need all of you to fight for Mark Dayton so we can keep this state moving forward. It looks like you're kind of fired up. And I need you fired up. Because in just 10 days, you have the chance not just to set the direction of this state, but also help to determine the direction of this country. Not just for the next 2 years, but the next 5 years, the next 10 years, the next 20 years. Yeah. And just like you did in 2008, you have the chance to defy the conventional wisdom. Because right now the conventional wisdom is that you can't overcome the cynicism of politics, that you can't overcome all the special interest money that Mark was talking about, that you can't tackle big challenges, that the political system just can't digest it. The same way that they said in 2008 that you can't elect a skinny guy with a funny name to the presidency of the United States of America. And so in 2008 you said, yes we can. In 2010 you've got to say, yes we can. This is going to be a difficult election. And it's because we've been through an incredibly difficult time for our nation. For most of the last decade, the middle class in America was getting pounded. Give you a few statistics. Between 2001 and 2009, when Republicans were in charge, the middle class saw their incomes go down by 5% during that period. Yes. That's not according to me, that's according to the Wall Street Journal. Yes. Between that same period, we we had the slowest, most sluggish job growth of any time since World War II. So this was a lost decade for middle-class families. Costs of everything from health care to getting a college education were skyrocketing. Jobs were disappearing overseas. Too many parents had to say to their kids, you know, we might not be able to afford to send you to college. Too many families had to pass up going to the doctor when they got sick because they couldn't afford it. Too many Americans having 2, 3 jobs and still not being able to make ends meet. And then all of this culminated in the worst financial crisis and the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. I want everybody to think back to when I was first sworn in. We had lost 4 million jobs in the 6 months before I took office. We lost 750,000 the month I took the oath. 600,000 the month after that, 600,000 more the month after that. We lost almost 8 million jobs. Almost all of them lost before any of our economic policies could be put into place. And when I arrived in Washington, my hope was that we could put politics aside for a moment to meet this once-in-a-generation challenge. My hope was we could stop the division and the bickering and the partisanship that had dominated Washington. And that we could come together to solve problems because although we are proud Democrats, we are prouder to be Americans, Minnesota. And I believe there are a lot of Republicans out there that felt the same way, but when we got to Washington, the Republican leaders in Congress, they had a different idea. Their basic theory was they looked around and said, boy, we really made a big mess. We really screwed up. It's going to take a long time to get those 8 million jobs back. People are going to be angry and frustrated. It's better if we refuse to cooperate. We say no to everything. We try to gum up the works in Congress. And we may be able to deflect the blame come the next election. We'll just pretend like we had nothing to do with it.
They did.
And we'll point our fingers at the Democrats.
Exactly. Yeah.
In other words, the other side was betting on amnesia.
Yeah.
They're betting that you forget who caused this mess in the first place.
Yeah.
But Minneapolis, it is up to you to show them that you have not forgotten. It's up to you to remember that this election is a choice between the policies that got us into this mess and the policies that are leading us out of this mess. It's a choice between the past and the future. A choice between hope and fear. A choice between falling backwards and moving forwards. And I don't know about you, but I want to move forward. If you don't think there's a choice, if you think somehow there's a new and improved Republican Party out there, let me be clear. That the chair of the Republican campaign committee was asked, well, what are you going to do if you take over Congress? He said, we'll pursue the exact same agenda as we did before Obama took office. I mean, it's not as if they went off into the desert, you know, they realized, boy, we really screwed up. And they went and meditated for a while and came up with some new ideas. All they've got is the same old stuff that they were peddling over the last decade. Cut taxes mostly for millionaires and billionaires. Cut rules for special interests. And then cut middle-class families to fend for themselves. So if you're out of a job, tough luck, you're on your own. You don't have health care, their philosophy says tough luck, you are on your own. You're a young person trying to afford a college education, too bad. Pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, you're on your own. same agenda turned a record surplus into record deficits, allowed Wall Street to run wild, and nearly destroyed our economy. And I make these points not because I want to re-argue the past. I just don't want to relive the past. We can't afford it. We can't afford it. We tried it their way. It's not as if we didn't try it. We tried it for 8 years, and it didn't work. And you know, the true sign of madness is if you do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. We've tried what they're doing, and it didn't work, and we wouldn't get a different result if we went back to it. So we've got to move forward, not back. I know that Al Franken talked to you a little bit about the analogy of a car being driven into the ditch. Although I guess Al kind of embellished it a little bit. He said there were alligators down there. Now, I didn't see the alligators, but it is true the car went into the ditch. And it is true that me and Al and Amy and Mark and others, we've had to climb down into the ditch. And it is hot down there and dirty. We've been pushing that car, pushing it. The whole time the Republicans have been standing on the sidelines. They've been looking down, fanning themselves, sipping on a Slurpee, kicking dirt down into the ditch, kicking dirt in our faces, but we kept on pushing. Finally, we got this car up on level ground, and yes, it's a little beat up. It needs to go to the body shop. It's got some dents. It needs a tune-up, but it's pointing in the right direction. And now we've got the Republicans tapping us on the shoulder saying, we want the keys back. You can't have the keys back. You don't know how to drive. You can ride with us if you want, but you got to sit in the back seat. We're going to put middle-class America in the front seat. We're looking after them. I mean, you have noticed when you want to go forward, what do you do with your car? You put it in D. If you want to go backwards, what do? You put it in R. I don't want to go backwards. I'm going forwards. What I will do. Minnesota, because of the steps we've taken, we no longer face the possibility of a second depression. The economy's growing again. We've seen 9 straight months of private sector job growth, but we've still got a long way to go. There are a lot of folks hurting out there. A lot of people hanging by a thread. There's still families who have members who are desperate for a job. There's still a lot of folks who are still worried about losing their home. That's what keeps me up at night. That's what keeps Mark up at night. That's what keeps us fighting. Because we've got a different idea about what the future should hold for America. And it's an idea rooted in our belief about how this country was built. We understand government can't solve every problem. We know government has to be lean and mean. We know that everybody who pays taxes expects efficiency. They don't want to see their tax dollars wasted. But in the words of the first Republican president, Abraham Lincoln, who, by the way, could not win the nomination of the Republican Party these days, we also believe that a government should do for the people what they cannot do better for themselves. That